Hello. Today is a fifth line day. We are in the 60th gate, the gate of acceptance and limitation. And here in the fifth line, we have leadership. So in this fifth line, the line of leadership, this is the power to call out. And particularly, it's going to call out its harmonic, the second line, and it's going to call out its decisiveness. Whenever we get to the fifth line, we get to how the hexagram is perceived by others. And it's interesting to recognize that this individual limitation, this acceptance, is considered a leadership function by the totality. In terms of circuitry, the 60 goes up to the 3, which goes across the sacral into the 214. The 214 is the channel of being a keeper of the keys. It's the individual providing direction for the totality. And the magnetic monopole sits in the second gate. And here we have the capacity, which is in the recognition that within the 60 lies all of this old information. Remember, we mentioned a couple of days ago that the 60 is the old. It holds that old information, whereas the 3 is the beginning. It's difficulty at the beginning, but it's the new. So the 60 in the fifth line is projected on that it can naturally lead people. It can take people to the next stage. We have Neptune in this exaltation, which means it's going to be fuzzy. And it says the awareness that the destruction of the old limitations simply creates new ones. This results in behavioral patterns that demonstrate this understanding through actions and enhances leadership potential. The energy to handle a lifelong process of dealing with limitations. The awareness that the destruction of the old limitations simply creates new ones. This is in resonance to the second line, to the decisiveness, where this lesson is first understood. And this results in behavioral patterns that demonstrate this understanding through actions and through that enhanced leadership potential. This is so important. If a limitation is not transcended, the fifth line knows that you have to wait and accept what is until it can be transcended. And in that sense, it has a leadership capacity. It can act as a role model and it can guide others to wait. Other people are always projecting on the person with the 60 in the fifth line that they can handle a limitation, and they can draw the conclusion that if they can handle that limitation and we can't, they are certainly the ones to guide us through until that limitation ends. And of course, that may or may not be true. Neptune in this aspect, it gives the sense of a lifetime learning, because you can never see an end to the limitation, because it is veiled, because it is fuzzy. So it's not about accepting the limitation and everything's going to be terrific, because the moment you transcend, what are you going to find? Oh, there's another limitation, and there's another, and there's another, and another. We're in form. We are consciousness in form, and form is the ultimate limitation. We operate by the laws of the form principle, and this is a limitation. In the detriment, where the natural desire for expansion, when limitations are essential, creates confusion from the top. Expansive energy that cannot handle limitations. To be effective, the general can only bring what is practical, and only in times of crisis. This leadership has to be able to instill those limitations in others as a mutation in order for the ultimate process to take place. They themselves have an enormous difficulty with that. They see that limitations are essential, but the projection field pulls on them for completion. If somebody looks upon you as a mutative force and you don't mutate them fast enough, you have a problem. And this is a pressure gate. There is always that pressure to satisfy the demands that are placed on your gate. All fifth lines are like that. Whenever they succumb to the projection, they get burnt at the stake. It doesn't matter what the language is. When they recognize the value of being projected on, that's an advantage for them selectively. Then they have success in life. And it's always the same. And remember something about the fifth line. Even though it is being projected on, it doesn't mean that it's really got what it takes. It is given the opportunity to get it, to show that it can accept the limitation until the time is appropriate to make the transcendence. It's an expansive energy that cannot handle limitations. But other people are dependent on this energy. In that sense, the whole planet is dependent on this energy, because without mutation, evolution is a dead-end street. So the capacity to lead is always projected onto the 60 in the fifth line. They can lead others into limitations and trying to break them, when in fact, once you've broken them, there is still going to be another limitation. There was a time many years ago when prisoners were punished by making them dig a ditch, a big long trench or a huge hole in the ground. At the end of the day, they would be allowed to sleep, and then the next morning they'd go out to the same place and they'd be made to fill in that trench or fill that hole, put all of that back in. You get rid of that limitation, you dig your way out of it, and then you fill it back in and you start all over again. And that kind of an energy, that kind of or stuckness in the limitation can be very depressing. This is the nature of this detriment. It can end up being very depressive for whatever value that has. Limitation cannot be broken. A limitation can only be transcended. When it says in the detriment confusion coming from the top, it means it is coming from the leader. The moment that the leader is not accepting the limitation, but giving others the direction of trying to break that limitation, they're only going to be confronted with a new limitation. So the leader, the one at the top, is confusing all the others below, guiding them to believe that they can break the limitation when in fact they cannot, because another limitation will simply come in to replace it. All fifth lines are in a dilemma in which they may or may not be equipped to live up to the projection of others. You see that the detriment of the fifth line is not able to live up to that. If you are a 60 in the fifth line, you have all these people who are waiting for you to act. You may be under so much pressure that you are depressed by not acting, because every individual wants to play out that role in which they can provide guidance and direction, because it's a very natural place for the individual to be. That central channel goes up through that keeper of the keys, the direction. The second gate and the magnetic monopole, that's all our individuality. So the grounding comes from gate 56 in the fifth line, attracting attention. By its very nature, the fifth line of the 60 is going to attract attention because it's a line of leadership. But will it be the right kind of attention? Will there be the possibility of bringing a practical solution that is going to stave off a crisis? Can the 60 in the fifth line tap into the gift of stimulation that the 56 has in order to deal with limitation, or perhaps explain why it's not possible, why waiting is necessary? The moon has been in 46 since 0002, so just past midnight. The G center gate of the temple, the love of the body. It's the trust of being in the right place at the right time. From the 46, the moon moves into gate 18 at 11:19, beginning its monthly look at all the splenic gates, beginning as always with gate 18, the gate of correction, working on what has been spoiled. This gate loves to put things right or point out what is not looking right in the pattern. If there's a note off key, a painting off center, or a comma in the right place, or the wrong place rather, this is the gate that will point it out. Without the fuel from gate 58, it can't do anything about what it sees. It can only mark it, which can be deeply frustrating. And then we have gate 48 at 22:41. This is the well, the gate of depth. collecting all the bits and pieces of trivia that come its way, and lots of deep and valuable knowledge too, storing it all in the well, waiting for the right time to be invited to share its resources with the collective. Okay, that's our fifth line. Thank you so much for joining me. Top of the hexagram tomorrow, which means we are almost at the new year. So I will see you then. Until then, as always, love yourself, love your limitations, accept your limitations if you're called to do so, if it feels correct for you. You could play with it, certainly. I'll see you tomorrow. Go gently.